Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. This is Styx and I have a special video to share with you today. My very first YouTube collab video. I'm excited to show you the process of the artwork that I created and then also the process of coloring the artwork that my partner created. And without further ado, I'd like to get right to it, but before we do that, I want to introduce you to my collab partner, Reeni Sketchbook. Reeni does amazing traditional and digital fan art, speed paints, tutorials, and marker reviews. Her tutorials are super clear and helpful, and I always enjoy the subject matter she chooses to draw. I'm thrilled to have the honor of doing a collaboration with such a talented and kind artist, and I can't wait to see what she does with the piece that I drew. Speaking of which, I'm going to go ahead and show a very quick time lapse of the drawing I did. This was actually my third attempt at line work for this collab. The first two ideas I had were not turning out to my satisfaction, and I wanted to provide the best base I could for Reeni to work with. Our theme was fantasy, and I figured that would be easy for me because I'm a huge fantasy nerd. This actually worked against me though, because there were too many inspirations to choose from. Then I heard some of my friends talking about the challenge called Junicorn, where you draw a unicorn every day for the month of June. I knew I wouldn't be able to commit to a whole month of daily unicorns, but I loved the idea. So in honor of Junicorn, I decided to draw my very favorite unicorn, along with her human form, the Lady Amalthea. If you were not a child of the 80s, I know I'm old, you may not recognize these faces. If you haven't seen The Last Unicorn, I highly recommend it. I think the artwork and animation is as beautiful as the story itself. Once I was finally happy with my part, I couldn't wait to see what Reeni had done for me to color, and it didn't take long before she said hers was ready. Well, here we go guys, I'm gonna open it. I haven't looked at it yet, but this is the artwork that Reeni has sent me to do this collab with. And let's look. Oh my gosh, it's so pretty! Look how pretty it is. It's so delicate. I actually almost did something exactly like this for one of the first few that I tried to draw. I had a girl looking at a fairy in her hands. That's amazing! Oh gosh, I am so excited to color this, guys. Let's get to it! So since Reeni does a lot of marker art on her channel, I really wanted to try coloring this with markers, but I didn't really have a set of enough colors in order to actually color a full piece. Being primarily a digital artist, I don't have a large collection of traditional art supplies, although I'm starting to get more into that, and that was one of my New Year's resolutions, was to try and do more traditional art. If any of you saw my marker review video from a few weeks ago, you might remember that I have about 4 Copics, they're all skin tone colors, and a smattering collection of other bullet nib and chisel nib markers. I didn't feel like I had enough color variety to do a whole piece with, but luckily Reeni actually suggested to me these Studio 71 brush markers, and they're very inexpensive. I think it was $46 for 48 markers, which for brush markers you can't really beat that. So I got them, and that's what I am using in this piece today. I did use my Copics for the skin, but other than that, everything you see me color here is done with these Studio 71 markers. It was an interesting experience using the Studio 71 markers right after I used the Copics, because I could really tell the difference between the nibs. The Copic markers have a lot more of a softer and more pliable brush nib than the Studio 71 markers. Those are a lot firmer, which is good and bad. They're a little bit harder to blend, I would say, because they're firmer, but they provide a lot more control of where the tip goes, and I was able to stay in the lines a lot better most of the time. So I guess it just depends on your style and how you prefer to color. This being only my second time really coloring with alcohol markers and my first time trying to complete a whole illustration, I decided to start off lighter and try to build up towards the darker colors. I'd heard that markers are similar to watercolors in that way, and I actually used a lot of tips that I got from watching Reenie's videos in order to color the skin and eyes and everything else. So again, if you haven't checked her out, definitely go check her out. She's awesome with those tutorials. I found working with these markers pretty intuitive. I haven't done a lot of marker coloring, but I know that blending is one of the big ways to tell whether or not you've got a quality product, and for the most part, these were pretty easy to blend. However, I did notice in some places, such as the hair, where I went over things several times to try and get darker and darker and more blending, it did kind of start to pool up on the top of my marker paper that I was using, which I've heard means that it just won't accept any more ink. You've reached the limit. That's all she wrote. So I don't know if that's just a function of me not knowing how to get the look I want before that happens, because I'm so new at this, or if it's the markers or if it's the paper. So take that with a grain of salt. The paper I'm using, by the way, is Strathmore marker paper, so I think it's a pretty good quality, though I am no expert there either. As far as the color selection goes with these markers, I found it was pretty easy to get the variety of colors I felt like this illustration needed, with one minor exception. I had really wanted a very pale yellow to go around the light of the fairy in the middle, and also to use in the background. Unfortunately, there wasn't a pale yellow to be had. The only option was kind of a skin tone and a really bright yellow, which wasn't the look I was going for. And unfortunately, I didn't have a pale yellow in any of my other alcohol marker collections either, so I had to do something different with the background, as you'll see towards the end here. But that was the one thing that I had an issue with. And when I spoke to Reenie, she said she had that same issue because she wanted to use a light yellow, pale yellow also, and there isn't one. So I'm wondering if the Studio 71 markers, I know that they can be sold a la carte, and I'm wondering if there are any more than come in this 48 pack, and then maybe there's a light yellow to be had that way. One extra purchase I did make was I bought the blender that doesn't come with the set of 48 markers, but it's a colorless blender, and it was only a couple of dollars, I think, and that was invaluable. It allowed me to blend the skin tones and the lighter tones that weren't going into any other colors into a nice white evenly, so that was really nice. It helped a lot. My original idea for the background had been a nice kind of sunrise with pale yellow at the bottom slowly fading into a light pink, and then maybe like a slightly darker pink at the top. I thought the soft colors would really complement the rest of the color palette. However, without that pale yellow, I decided to go with more of a kind of early before dawn look. So I went with blues in the background, and I had some fun with those water droplets, trying to make them look nice and realistic. And overall, I think it turned out pretty well. I do kind of wish I would have been able to try the other color scheme, but this works well as a replacement, I think. And because my webcam records very brightly, I thought I'd show more of a close-up of what the colors look like from my phone camera. They're a little bit more vibrant. Well guys, what did you think? I think for my first marker piece, it turned out fairly well. I think there's some things that I could have done better, but it's a learning process, and this was my very first try to really do a full piece with markers. So I'm really lucky that I got to try it out on such a beautiful artwork drawn by Reeni's Sketchbook. Please don't forget to go check her out. I'll leave her link below. Thank you for coming along with me on this YouTube collab journey, and I will see you guys next time. Bye! If you're new to my channel, thanks for being here. I hope you'll consider subscribing if you like what you saw.